You are now watching the Amazing Mets pregame show with your hosts, Rob and CP.
Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on both of our channels and, of course, on both accounts on X. Hopefully, you Mets fans are excited because we got some Mets baseball to talk about tonight with the Mets playing Cincinnati in Citi Field and ready to try to go for win number 8 in a row and look to try to sweep another series, and that could be 3 in a row. But we got to get started with game number 1 tonight with Sean Manaea and Fernando Cruz on the mound for both respective teams. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. The boys are buzzing. They're playing fantastic baseball. And you know what? As a fan, there's nothing really more to say. We're just going out there every single day, watching this team, talking about this team. They either do it or they don't at this point. It's September 6th. Like we said, all excuses are out the window. And they got to go out there and hopefully win their 8th straight tonight. Appreciate everybody that's in the chat right now. Make sure you all are spamming those thumbs up. Let's get some W's in the chat as well. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I know I'm almost at 900 subscribers. Let's get going. I appreciate everybody. Thank you all so much for the support. I can't wait for this game, man. I'm pumped. And this is, I feel like, the first Friday in a while where I've been around and been able to dedicate the start of my weekend to some Mets baseball. So I love it. Let's get it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be rocking at Citi Field for the weekend. It's the first week of school in the Northeast for a lot of kids. And, it's the first weekend of the school year, basically. And look, when the Mets are doing well, it's late in the season. Citi Field for Friday, Saturday, Sundays are going to be crazy. It's going to be outstanding. It's going to be a ton of energy in that ballpark. And I think the Mets are going to thrive off of this energy that the fans are going to bring. And look, they're playing right now. I think they're playing I think you could really say that this is the first time over, I would say, about a 2-week stretch. They're probably playing their best baseball of the season based on all around performances. Like, everything's coming together full circle. The bullpen has been better. The starting pitching has been outstanding. The offense has been scoring runs. It's everything coming full circle. And what a great time to do it then in late August into September. And they got to continue it with 22 games to go. 12 games over 500. It's funny. Not too long ago, we were 11 games over. I mean, that's a 20-game difference since the middle of May. Like, that's how crazy this season has been. It's been a complete 180, and it's great to see this team thriving and vibing the way they are right now. It doesn't seem like they can be stopped. Now, it is baseball. Things can happen, but there's a confidence about this team that you see on the field, on the mound, in the batter's box, on the field defensively. Everything just seems like the confidence is sky high right now, and nothing can stop them. We hope nothing can stop them. It looks like it right now, but when you got your quote-unquote ace on the mound tonight, you're feeling pretty good about game 141 of the season and trying to get to 13 games over 500. And Chris, listen, it's the nitty-gritty. It's ready to go. Like, there's no more excuses for this team. Anybody, I don't care if you're the first man on the roster or the last man on the roster, your name is called. You got to do your job. And this is what September baseball is all about. Do your job, or you'll be sitting home watching the playoffs. And this Mets team puts themselves in a position. And I said it, and you were on in the chat on Mets Talk Live this morning. And I said the quote of the day was the Mets gave them many different avenues to make the postseason at this point. A week ago, we were just talking about Atlanta and the third wild card. They have 4 opportunities to there's avenues, each opportunity from the first wild card to the third wild card, and possibly a little further reach, but still obtainable, is the division because of how many games you play against the Philadelphia Phillies. So I'm going to ask you, do you feel the same way about all these wild cards and the division, knowing that they put themselves in a position 12 games over 500 to have different avenues to make the playoffs this season with 22 games to go?
Please repeat that. I gotta shout out all my guys in the chat. I want to just shout out everybody in the chat. Like oh, I love talking Mets, but us talking Mets wouldn't be us talking Mets without the chat. Like shout out to D, shout out to Nick,
Absolutely.
shout out to Ibby, Oliver, Darren, Brad, everybody, John. Appreciate you all, Daniel, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. One more time because I was kind of zoning out. I'm sorry.
It's all good, man. It's all good, man.
Friday. It was a long week. Let's get it rocking. Hold on one second. Let me lock in. Repeat it one more time. Something about avenues of getting into the playoffs, I heard.
Yeah. So I said a quote earlier today on Mets Talk Live that the Mets put themselves in a situation where they have multiple avenues of making the playoffs now, unlike a week ago when they were basically just chasing the Braves, and that was the only opportunity we thought we would have to make the playoffs is that third wild card. But look at the standings. We're no more than 3.5 games from the first wild card, and we're 2.5 from the second, and obviously we're tied for the third, and 8 games out of the division. And why the division is obtainable is because of the fact that we played the Phillies 7 more times in 22 games. Do you believe that these are all that every avenue from division to each wildcard spot is obtainable in these last 22 games? Or do you feel like, should we have an eye on one area of a wild card, or do you just want to go, screw it, let's go for all of them?
That's a great question. I know the division has kind of been sort of within reaching distance, right? Over the last couple of weeks. Like I think the Mets got it down to like 6.5 at one point behind Philadelphia. Now it's at 8 with, I believe, 7 games left to play. I know this might be an unpopular opinion, but for me, I'm strictly focused on the wild card. If the Mets go out there and somehow chase down the Phillies, fantastic. Cherry on top, but I'm focused on making the playoffs. And for me, the most feasible way to make the playoffs right now is via the wild card. Now, I will say, I don't want to limit the Mets just to that third wild card spot. I have said it time and time again. I shouldn't say I believe in the Diamondbacks more than the Padres. I really do think the Padres will fall off. I believe in the sustainability of the Diamondbacks more so than the Padres. So I don't think the second wild card spot is out of the question. And hell, why not just go for the first wild card spot while we're at it to get that home field kind of advantage? So I would pump the brakes on the division. The Mets are going to need to take 4, 5, or 6 of those 7 games against Philly to even be considered a playoff contending team, right? Because they have really like no margin for error we keep talking about. But I would pump the brakes on the division. Yes, that's still in the back of my mind and I'm thinking about it, but I'm not going to prioritize it. I need the Mets to solidify themselves and potentially separate themselves in this wild card race first before I start to think about the division. So all that matters at this point right now, though, is the game that's in front of you. We talk about it all the time. The series that's in front of you, and if you're a player for the New York Mets, presumably the game that's in front of you. The New York Mets pushed, right? Sean Manaea start up one game because I believe everyone's saying that there's rain in the forecast for tomorrow. Obviously, I believe, what was it? Jose Quintana was supposed to be pitching tonight. It was supposed to be someone else pitching tonight. And Sean Manaea got the start tonight because, like you said, he is acting as the ace of the New York Mets right now. 3.35 ERA with an 11.5 record. He is absolutely fantastic, pitching so extremely well. And also, a part of your Mets Talk Live, the focus was winning game 1 of a series because it puts you at a position to have endless possibilities of doing anything you want in game 2 or 3. Hopefully getting the series win out of the way like the Mets did against the Chicago White Sox and Boston Red Sox. But at the end of the day, it's all about game 1. And the Mets are proving that, and they're prioritizing their best pitcher by moving him up. Now he's just got to deliver. And what was so interesting to me, if you guys missed it, MLB Network, they posted a little bit of a clip on their YouTube channel. It was Ron Darling talking about Sean Manaea and his resurgence. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but everything that Ron Darling said in that video was the same exact thing that I said in my video a couple weeks ago and talking about Sean Manaea. He talked about the arm slot and how it seems like his arm slot kind of lowered a little bit. He talked about his positioning of his body in terms of emulating Chris Sale and potentially going a little bit more to the left-hander's batter's box. Like, obviously, Ron Darling doesn't watch my podcast. I don't expect him to, but people are starting to pick up on the differences of Sean Manaea that was struggling just a little bit in the beginning of the season, but now has solidified himself into a true ace or co-ace of a rotation in the National League right now in September. So this is an exciting game. Yes, to round out my sort of rant on your question, I do think that the division is within striking distance per se, but for right now, I'm focused on the wild card spot, and it starts with building separation from the Braves, which has been a very tough task for the Mets in recent years, as we all know how 2022 turned out, and then also potentially catching the Diamondbacks and Padres.
Yeah.
I think that they can be the first wild card team. I think that that's what they should be shooting for at the very minimum. So, like I said, it's an exciting time, and I can't wait for this first pitch to happen because this is a big series. And guess what? Every series is a big series for the New York Mets here now. But when you look at this schedule and how hard it is coming up for the New York Mets, you have to take advantage against the inferior teams. But don't let the Cincinnati Reds fool you. Yes, they have fallen off of a cliff. They're not in the wild card race anymore, but they still have premier young talent, and they can surprise, and they are playing to be spoilers right now. And the Mets can't let that happen.
Yeah, they got a couple of good young players, and you always worry about those young, I need to prove more of myself to an organization type guys that with teams that are not in it anymore. You always worry about those teams because even though as a whole team they don't have nothing to prove, but individual players have a lot to prove to their organization to stay in the big league. So you always worry about those teams. They're dangerous regardless of their record. And that's what you got to watch out for. And listen, you're right about the whole San Diego Padres situation. I even said I think Arizona's a little bit more dangerous, and I think they're going to be fine, Arizona. The Padres, I don't trust one bit. We've seen them with Soto, without Soto. They're a team that has continuously choked. Choke leads away, choke games, choke series away. So I don't expect them to, have a hot September and run away with the first wild card. I don't see that at all. And here's the other advantage the New York Mets have. They have the tiebreaker with the D-backs and the Padres, and possibly the Braves when we do face them at the end of the month. So that's the advantage the New York Mets have. That's why, I asked you that question, is there more avenues other than the wild card? Is the division, obtainable? Yeah, no, obviously, if you do simple math, yes, it's obviously obtainable. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take the Phillies choking it away and the Mets playing extremely well. But it's of course it's possible. But because of the two tiebreakers that we have with the Padres and the Diamondbacks, gives us hope that we can get to that first wild card and second wild card. And there should be no reason why we should limit our I would say greediness when it comes to what wild card you actually want. I mean, at this point, I don't really care. Like, I think we can beat anybody on any given day. I think we can beat anybody in any series, right? I brought this up on Mets Talk Live as well. There's a pretty good chance that there's not going to be a 100-win team in baseball, let alone the National League. And that just shows you the parity, even though it's not really good competition for the most part around baseball. It shows you how close teams are parity-wise, in baseball. There's no reason why you can't go into a series thinking that you can't win. And, there's been some Mets fans that are saying, oh, I don't want to be the third wildcard team. It's not like we're going to win the World Series anyway. That's a losing mentality. Two, you haven't watched enough baseball to realize that all you got to do is get hot at the right time, regardless of your record, regardless of where you finished in the season, division winner or wild card. You can beat anybody at any given moment. And I'm sorry, there's nobody better pitching than Shohei Manaea right now. There's nobody pitching better than David Peterson right now. And even Severino has kicked it up a notch a little bit after his few bad starts or, non-decent starts. He's been picking it up. So I go to war with three of those guys in a 3-game series. Why the hell not? So I'm confident in this team. I'm not going to stand there and saying this team is going to make the playoffs, even though they're in a playoff spot right now. I'm not going to, put that pressure from myself on them, even though there's obviously pressure. I just feel like they're coming together as a team full circle where any given day, somebody is going to step up. If it's going to be the pitcher, it's going to be the lineup, it's going to be the bullpen. Somebody's going to help us win a ball game. And it's good to know that finally, it took a hell of a long time, but this whole team from top to bottom are coming together just at the right time in September. We just hope it gets us over the hump, and then we can be talking about October baseball. And God knows we want October baseball. We are, drooling at the thought process of getting to the playoffs. Because, Chris, I don't know about you, but there is no way in hell I'm going to be afraid of anybody going into a playoff series. Because there's guys in this team that has a tremendous amount of postseason experience. There's guys that have been hella clutch in the postseason. Martinez, Lindor. People were in the chat earlier before we started our stream, talked about Bader and his postseason numbers and what he did as a Yankee when nobody else performed. We have guys that have outstanding postseason numbers, specifically in the lineup, that I would love to get that opportunity. I want to see Lindor in the playoffs more than 3 games. How about that? I know that might be all we get this year as well, but I think that he is made. Lindor and Bader are made for those moments. 2 of the clutchest players on this team. I'm ready for postseason baseball, and I think the Mets are going to get there, and it starts tonight against the Reds.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. It starts tonight against the Reds. I mean, I think somebody in the chat was saying the Reds scratched their starting pitcher. Is that true? Somebody in the chat, please fact check that. Because I was doing some research on Fernando Cruz, and I was just like, listen, this guy, he's got a 3-pitch arsenal. He's got a splitter that is otherworldly, apparently. Opponents are batting 115 off of his splitter, and that's his primary pitch. And then the expected batting average on it is like 105 or something crazy like that. So I don't really know what's going on there. So someone please fact check us on that. But until further notice, I'm going to go off of Fernando Cruz pitching. But Sean Manaea, same thing. Like, we know the strategy that Sean Manaea likes to deploy. We know the pitches that he likes to use and what's his bread and butter. It's the fastball and sweeper combination. Doesn't like to throw his changeup often because he hasn't had much success with it in 2024. So I really do think that Sean Manaea has done a great job in terms of mixing up his pitches, but also changing the eye level of batters. And there's something to be said for just going out there and not being scared as a pitcher, right? Yes, sometimes you will leave a fastball middle. But if you throw a fastball middle, at least be confident with it. Rear back and actually throw it and not try to aim the ball, because when you start aiming the ball, the velocity goes down, and that's when you get hurt with the long ball. You can make mistakes as a pitcher and get away with it. Nobody's expecting you to be 100% perfect, and that goes for the starting pitchers and the bullpen. But what matters is being competitive out there, having at least like some self-confidence out there, even when the times get tough, rearing back and just making a pitch. And then at that point, either they hit it over the fence or they don't. And if they don't, hopefully your fielder makes a play for you and you get out of an inning. And I think that's what happened in that Tyler McGill start, to be honest with you, after Tyler McGill left the game, right? The guys in the bullpen were just out there and pitching. Like, they weren't throwing the ball. There's a difference between, if you've played baseball before, there's a difference between when you're on the mound just throwing the ball or if you're actually pitching. There's an absolute difference there. And it's about the sort of, in dumbed down terms, I guess, it's about the way that you're competitive with your pitches. And that's what we've talked about this whole entire season, Rob, is how competitive are the Mets with their pitches? How confident are they in what they're throwing? And you can tell, to the naked eye, you can tell a pitcher that's out there and he's confident in what he's throwing versus who isn't. And lately, Sean Manaea has been really confident, so I really hope that he can continue that. But it starts tonight. Like I said, you cannot take the Cincinnati Reds for granted at all. This is a talented team on paper, and they can win a series and take a series from you in a snap of a finger if you kind of take them a little lightly. And I know the Mets haven't been taking opponents lightly, especially the inferior opponents. Obviously, they took care of business against Boston, but more importantly, they took care of business against the White Sox, whereas earlier in the season, you had losses against the Rockies, you had losses against the Marlins, you had losses against whatever other scrub team you want to throw out there that the Mets definitely should have beat, and they were losing games to those teams, and it was just simply unacceptable. So I honestly think that the Mets are completely locked in right now. I'm not worried about that. There's certain times in the season where you've looked at the Mets and you're like, are they locked in right now? Do they know that there's a game happening right now? But from everything that I see, from the start of the game, pregame, whatever, to the very end, even the post-game press conferences or the post-game on-field interviews, these guys are locked in supporting each other, and they are built and they're bought in to the system and what's happening right now. Even the new guys, right? Jesse Winker is a prime example. I just saw a video. Not that this matters, obviously, in the grand scheme of things in terms of the end result of like what's happening, but I just saw a video of Jesse Winker. I believe he was the one who hit the home run, or I don't know who it was. I think it was Jesse Winker. You know how they do the little OMG celebration with the sign and the picture at the end of the dugout? Jesse Winker had two guys right next to him. Luis Severino, I forgot who the other guy was. He didn't take the picture. He said, hold on, wait. He waved to Francisco Lindor and brought him over and made sure Francisco Lindor was part of that picture. Like, I love just to see the cohesive unitness of this team. It's so refreshing because this team wants to go out there and they want to compete. And last year, we were sitting here on stream dreading talking about this team, talking about why the hell do these guys look like they don't want to be there? Why the hell are guys in the dugout on the bench not even paying attention to the game, looking like they're falling asleep? Do you understand, just from the cultural perspective of a baseball club, how much has to change in a year to see what we're seeing now based off of what we were seeing or versus what we were seeing last season? Guys, this is something that we can definitely appreciate. And I know that we want to win and win and win. But the fact that this team under this new regime in Stearns and Mendoza is playing this way and buying in it brings a breath of fresh air to me, to be honest, as a fan, Rob. Compared to past seasons that we've had and personnel that we've had, I think that this is something that we can definitely build off of, whether we make the playoffs or whether we don't. Obviously, I'm never going to say I don't want to see the Mets making the playoffs, but just appreciating the culture that is now here and building off that makes me ecstatic. It really does.
Yeah, building off this season for years to come, because we how many Met fans we saw it all off season about why would any free agent want to come here? That's all people talked about. They have to win. They have to show that they're actually a decent team. Well, they've shown that regardless of if they make the playoffs or not. This is a place where you want to come. And this is not just about Juan Soto. This is about other free agents as well. I still believe that if you're going to give the most money, these players are going to come regardless. But you know what? There's an extra incentive now to come to the New York Mets. It looks like a fun time in the clubhouse. It looks like a fun team. They are a competitive. They are a team that could be on the verge of closing in on 90 wins if we get there. And this is amazing, the vibe around, like you were talking about. And, while you were talking, it took 140 games, but I found Yankee fans and Brave fans showing up in the chat saying, the Braves, you really think you're going to catch the Braves? Do you see the Braves schedule? Yeah, they just lost to the Rockies.
You already caught the Braves. There's no thinking we caught the Braves. We were tied with them right now. What are we talking about here?
I don't care. Here's the problem. Regardless of what the schedules look like, the fact of the matter is the Braves are a team that aren't as good, yes, because of the injuries, but they also haven't played outstanding either. If you look at a lot of their games, it's basically down to the wire type of games. They've been playing a lot of close games where the Mets actually have been playing good teams and actually beating them up. Like when the Mets are winning now, they're giving themselves a 4 or 5 run lead. Like that's been the case. And again, I'm not saying that the Mets are making the playoffs. I'm not saying the Mets are going to surpass the Braves. But, I mean, we are tied right now, so catching them is irrelevant. We are tied right now. We both have the same record with 22 games to go. It's very simple. And Yankee fans, I understand you're in the chat. I understand you just beat the Cubs, right? Congratulations, the Cubs, right? But why are you worried about us? We haven't even brought up the 4-game sweep against the Yankees since we faced you. We don't care about you.
At all.
We really don't. You should be worrying about the Baltimore Orioles and making sure you win your division. because in a very weak American League, there's no excuses for the Yankees. So, Yankee fans, it's okay. We know we're playing better than you. We know we've been the best baseball since the end of May. We understand. It hurts that little brother is, playing better than you. It's okay. Worry about yourself and the Baltimore Orioles, please. We don't need that negativity. Keep that shit in the Bronx. So, the boys and Queens are just a team that everybody, even nationally now, if you watch MLB Network, I was watching, I forgot which game that I was watching, and they were talking about the Mets, and it was two American League teams. These were their announcers. I don't know if it was Cleveland. I'm not sure if it was Cleveland. I think it was Cleveland when they were playing somebody else, and I think it was more about Lindor, which obviously makes sense. But they were talking about the Mets, and it just shows you that around baseball, people are noticing what the Mets are doing. And again, this can all be for nothing if you don't make the playoffs, but nationally, people are talking about it because they are a dangerous team. They see how good this rotation has been, especially Sean Manaea, with just a little twink in the way he pitches and his arm slot changed him into an ace type of pitcher. Like, he's still throwing around 93, 94 in Sean Manaea, but it's getting to that batter much quicker. You could see they can't catch up to it. He's throwing that fastball letter high, where a lot of hitters are very vulnerable letter high. And you just see how good and confident Sean Manaea is on the mound, where when he goes on the mound, he's like, I'm going to win. I'm giving my team a W tonight. And that's all the confidence you need if you're a Mets fan and if you're a Mets teammate. Like, everybody trusts one another. And Chris, you just said it. We haven't seen this. We talked about the bad chemistry just last season. And this is what more veterans last season. And you know what? Sometimes it just takes a different path of leadership or somebody stepping up in the clubhouse and taking over the team. And I'm going to bring up the MVP of 2024 in Francisco Lindor, because I told you on Mets Talk Live, every show, I'm going to say MVP, National League MVP for 2024 is going to be Francisco Lindor. I'm bringing it out there, and I'm going to say it on every show, every single day, because this guy is doing something that Mets fans, I don't care if you're young or old, haven't seen this type of performance, not just offensively, but overall baseball player. Some people brought up David Wright. Some people brought up Carlos Beltran. If you want to go back to the 80s, talk about Strawberry. Strawberry wasn't a very good defensive player, right? But he was great offensively. But guys that play every day, guys that put up the numbers that Lindor is doing, not just offensively and defensively, but stolen bases. Now the OPS is there, the slugging, the on-base percentage. Every single thing this guy is doing is making himself more valuable than Shohei Ohtani. Because of Shohei Ohtani, who is only a DH, to do what Francisco Lindor is doing, playing the field as well, is absolutely outstanding. He deserves all the credit in the world. And I just want this guy to get to the playoffs, because I feel like he's going to do something. He's going to be Daniel Murphy special in the playoffs. I know that's kind of crazy because Lindor is a much better player than Daniel Murphy, but knowing what Lindor has done in the postseason with Cleveland, I think he's going to do that this year. He's just on another level, Chris. I mean, this is the best Lindor we've seen, and he's just amazing.
That Daniel Murphy, though, that postseason run that he had, that's like some lofty expectations, Rob. Daniel Murphy
Very unexpected though for Murphy.
That was crazy. So no, I agree with you. I mean, but in order for that to happen, like I said, like the Mets have to make the playoffs. If the Mets don't make the playoffs, there's no Lindor MVP discussion. And that's not because of a bad season that he's having. That's just because who's voting for MVP or they're definitely going to use that as the talking point of giving out the award. And I already think that Lindor is at a disadvantage because we all know how Mets players are treated with these kind of accolades. I mean, Lindor wasn't even an NL All-Star this year, for crying out loud. So that speaks volumes already in terms of just how the MLB world and it doesn't even boil down to other fans, like fan voting. It boils down to also writers and just people in this game in general have just a negative connotation surrounding the New York Mets. And that has ramped up, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, it's ramped up because of Steve Cohen. So right now, as much as I'd love to hammer in this Lindor for MVP sort of rhetoric, I feel like my time would be wasted because I just get a bad feeling about the hands that these decisions are in. They've shown that they don't care about objectivity in the past. So I'm just gonna root for the New York Mets. I'm gonna root for Lindor. And I do think, right, that especially in the last month or so, he has made his case stronger than ever before. And I do think that he does deserve it because there's a lot of merit to the fact that Lindor, when you take a look objectively and what he means to the New York Mets, right, and where they're at this season, could mean a little bit more than what Shohei Ohtani means to the Dodgers and where they're at right now, right? And comparing the two organizations. But that's neither here nor there. This team is solid. They play fundamental baseball. They didn't at one point, but they kind of turned it around, and now they have. And that's kind of what I've been always preaching this season from start to finish. But not only the guys are performing, you have to bring a group of people in here that buy in and that are talented, right? Like not only talented, because talent can only take you so far. It will get you far, but it also takes people buying into what's happening around with their teammates and the organization as well. And that's something that David Stearns was able to do in just his first year of president of baseball operations. I made a video yesterday during the off day talking about David Stearns. If you missed it, go back on my channel as soon as you're watching this pregame. I talked about David Stearns and all the additions that he made, both in the trade deadline and in the offseason. The only guy that I missed, and it's a shame on me, is Mr. OMG himself, is Jose Iglesias. I don't know what was going through my mind when I was making that. There's so many good guys to talk about. I talked about Alex Young. I talked about Danny Young. I talked about Winker. I talked about a guy like Phil Maton, right? Tyrone Taylor. I talked about all those guys, and I somehow forgot Mr. Jose Iglesias, and I apologize for that because that is unacceptable of me. But you get where I'm getting at. If you look at the 2023 season and the way that the Mets were left off when Billy Epler left this organization and what David Stearns inherited, to be at this point that the New York Mets are at right now in just a year's time, or a little under, because I believe David Stearns got hired a little bit later on, right? In terms of like September versus October, it doesn't really matter. It's crazy, Rob. Like it's crazy. I think people are taking that for granted, and they're not talking about that enough in terms of knowing that this offseason wasn't going to be flashy, but David Stearns was able to manipulate his signings and acquisitions in a way that he was able to bring in guys on short-term deals, prove-it-year deals, and believe in them doing his homework enough and bringing in winners. And you look at what the Mets are doing right now, they're reaping the benefits of the services of Sean Manaea, bounce back year, right? Harrison Bader, again, a bounce back year. Tyrone Taylor, who's producing, right? And a lot of people were asking, who the hell is Tyrone Taylor when the Mets you traded for him, right? Well, now you know he's a viable bench bat, an elite outfielder. Luis Severino coming off of a 6+ ERA season. So my point that I'm trying to get at, and I'm sorry for the spiel, is that yes, the players are doing a fantastic job, and I commend them for it. Everybody, top to bottom, because we talk about the lineup, and this is a beautiful lineup, by the way, that I'll talk about here in just a second. This is absolutely beautiful. I love this lineup. Lindor would love for him to win MVP. I'm just not getting my hopes up for it, but I think he deserves it, bar none. Let me just make that very clear. But the guy up top that was brought in here to be that difference maker in the decision making, you got to talk about him at some point. So yeah, that's all I got to say. I'd like to focus on this game, but I have to give credit where credit's due. And yesterday during the Mets off day, I try to pass my time with no Mets games like in a way that I think about the New York Mets and I look back at where we were at making streams just last year during this time and how miserable we were on stream, Rob, and now appreciating what has been brought forth to us as fans from this organization. So it's just spectacular. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, Stearns deserves a lot of credit. I mean, he said, and Stearns and Cohen said, we are not going to do flashy moves this offseason. And they put a, look, they were using crazy, Helmer's glue and Scotch tape to put this team together, and yet it turned out to be cement. Like, who knew that all these guys from the hand-me-downs from the New York Yankees, according to Yankee fans, right? I guarantee they love Severino or Beta right now to play the outfield and pitch, right? It is amazing, but health had a lot to do with it. And it's kudos to also that, the unsung heroes, the medical and training staff of the New York Mets, to keep these guys healthy, because they do have stats to show that they are good when they're healthy. Severino have not been healthy. Bader has not been healthy. You see what they can do when they're healthy, and that's kudos to the training staff, the medical staff, and the organization, keeping these guys, for the most part, healthy and ready to go to pitch every fifth day, to play 130, 140 game like Bader will. That is the big key to the season as well, is health for the right players as well. We had a decent amount of injuries, but they overcame them and kept certain guys healthy for almost the entire season. We still got 22 games to go. Let's hope nothing crazy happens. But for the most part, they've been healthy for the major part of the season, and that's another key as well. So let's get to the game.
While we're on this topic, though, right before we transition real quick, just really quick, it's so awesome to see David Stearns in terms of him backing up the Francisco Lindor hype. I know you're making it a point to back Francisco Lindor, the shorts that you're posting and mentioning in every stream. Like, David Stearns had some very high praise for what Lindor's doing right now. So that's coming from the man himself that I just praised in David Stearns. So that should say something. I just wanted to throw that out there because it's cool to see guys in the front office backing their guy publicly. And I want to commend and appreciate David Stearns for that as well.
Well, when Stearns always, preaches defense, and Lindor has been one of the best defensive players in baseball, you know what? He deserves all that praise. So, all right, we got a game tonight. It starts in just under an hour. Half hour, excuse me. A half hour right now. We talked about Sean Manaea. You talked a little bit about Fernando Cruz. Let's talk about this lineup. You said quickly you love this lineup. I do as well. It's a little, Vientos batting third, interesting. Martinez batting sixth. And I think because the way Winker has been hitting and behind Alonso, listen, Alonso has Vientos and Winker in front and behind him. There isn't any more protection right now than you can actually have at this moment than those two guys. So I expect Alonso to have a big game today, just because of the guys around him. And look, Marte 7, McNeil, Alvarez 7, 8, 9. Like, there is not a team in this league, lineup-wise, that can say 1 through 9. It's not an easy out at all, Chris. And this is the other reason why the confidence level for Mets fans are extremely high, because every given night, including tonight, the lineup, the depth of this team shows every night with this lineup, Chris.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And Jesse Winker, not many people know. I mean, I saw a lot of Jesse Winker comments, a lot of criticism of Jesse Winker in his first 12, 13 at-bats as a New York Mets since the trade deadline. I'm still fighting people on like X in terms of getting them to understand that Jesse Winker was the best offensive move the Mets could have had at the trade deadline. He's hitting 350, over 350 in his last 13 games as a Met, over 1,100 OPS during that time, right? 10 RBIs in that time, 3 home runs. Obviously, he's got the walk-off home run and the grand slam in that time frame as well. Like, this guy is playing phenomenal baseball. And so I don't usually, and I like before this season, because he had a really good start with the Nationals as well, I wouldn't have expected him to be a premier kind of like middle of the order guy batting fifth or whatever. I would think of him more as like a 6-7 guy. But with the way he's performing right now, there's no incentive at this point to take him out of the lineup or move him down the lineup so that he's not hitting behind Pete Alonso. I think this is the best for Pete Alonso, and this is the best for Jesse Winker because he seems very comfortable with that. Now, JD Martinez coming back from the paternity list is awesome, and congratulations again to him. It was awesome to see the girl dad hat that he was wearing walking into the stadium today that the Mets posted. That was awesome. I loved it. JD Martinez is back in the lineup. Now, again, JD Martinez is having a up and down type year. When you take a look at the numbers that he posted the Dodgers last year, obviously a lot better than what he's doing right now. But 250, 16 home runs, 65 RBIs, I'll take it. That's like what a 6-7 hitter does. So I'm actually really happy to see JD Martinez down there. And I think that that is going to also benefit the Mets a lot. And that just shows you the flexibility that Carlos Mendoza has. I say this every single stream when the lineup's out because Carlos Mendoza loves to switch it around in terms of especially the 6, 7, 8, 9 guys. We talked about Francisco Alvarez going from one game batting ninth to another game batting eighth, and he's also starting to put together competent at-bats and hitting the ball hard. So I like this lineup a lot. Vientos, again, like Vientos in the type of season that he's having, it's not leaving me speechless because I always knew that he could post these type of numbers, especially with the home run category. But the fact that he is batting third for the New York Mets when they are in contention for a playoff spot, do you know how many fans would have just like scoffed at you in the beginning of the season if they heard that? Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I believed in Mark Vientos, but if you told me he was batting third to begin the season, right? Or if you told me at the beginning of the season that he was batting third in September during meaningful baseball, I would have told you are crazy. So I'm gonna own up to that. But just to see like this lineup progress from the beginning of the year to the end of the year has been awesome. And I really do think I think I saw someone in the chat. I think that this might be the New York Mets A lineup. Like this might be their A lineup, to be honest with you. That's what I think. So go out there and do it. Mendoza puts it in a way that he's putting it right in front of your face. This is an A lineup, and you have your A pitcher on the mound. Take game one. There's no reason to lose this game at all.
No, with your best pitcher on the mound with probably your A lineup. Now, I know some might say probably not Marte, but I'm fine with Marte in right field. Again, he scares me in right field sometimes. And Nimmo has shown a little bit, I wouldn't say worse defense in center field, but he's shown a little bit of breaks.
Oh, it's been pretty bad, Rob. We don't have to sugarcoat that. Nimmo's defense has been pretty bad in center field. Yeah.
I'd rather him in left field. I think he's an elite left fielder, but he hasn't been good this year in center field. So, analytics be damned. Again, once if the Mets have a lead in the 6th, 7th inning, Nimmo's going to left. Bader's probably coming to center, and Taylor's probably coming to right field. So that's the other thing about the depth, and that's another great job by David Stearns, where he preached defense, and every given day, Mendoza, when he has a lead, puts those guys in, the better defensive players in those spots, and this is beautiful. This is why I like this team so much. Like this is not me, being a biased Met fan. It's just obvious facts that the depth of this team. And yeah, I agree with you. This is an A lineup, 110%. And if this is game one of the playoffs, I'm fine with that lineup. But with the Cincinnati Reds, with the pitcher we have going today, with the best lineup you can put on paper tonight, there is no excuse to lose this game today. We will not be happy post-game if this team loses today. And it doesn't matter how they lose. It's the fact that they shouldn't lose this game. Now, it is baseball. We know things happen. But the confidence level of us, the chat, the team, the packed City Field tonight, where I'm already getting texts from my friends that are there, waiting online at City Field on a Friday.
Let's
September
not
6th.
jinx us, Rob. I feel like I'm getting this feeling right now that we're talking about this and like we're gonna come on here disappointed in the
Oh my
post game because we've been talking about it so much. Like
God.
the Mets need to play their game, and that's it. I feel like we shouldn't be talking about needing to win against the Reds. Like that's a given. I think everybody knows that at this point. I just like
So,
kind
so,
of dawning
so
upon me.
we are gonna get blamed if we lose tonight, right? It's gonna be our fault, right? I know. All right. All right.
Yeah.
Damn. So you know what? If they lose, we're just gonna come on. We're not gonna say a word, and it's gonna be a silent stream and let everybody get after us on the chat on the post game. That's what it's gonna look like if we lose today. But listen, that's just the confidence level that we have right now. We know baseball is a very unique sport where bad teams beat good teams all the time. This is not the NBA. This is not the NFL. Usually the superior teams win. Doesn't happen in baseball. This is why this game is great. This is why we love this game, because anything can happen with every pitch, every at bat at any moment. And that's why it's so much fun to watch, and the anticipation of a game throughout the 2.5 hours, 3 hours of a ball game. So, Chris, I want to get your final thought today. The Mets are 12 games over 500, going for win number 8 in a row. What is the key, I would say, to the game today? If you had to choose one thing that's the key to the game against the Cincinnati Reds, what is it? And your final thoughts.
Oh, that's really hard. What is the key to the game today? I feel like nobody's gonna like this answer, but I feel like it has to be just score early. Like
Yeah.
that stuff, the stuff that the Mets have been pulling recently in terms of like waiting to the later parts of the game, especially like in the 8th inning, like the last 2 games against the Red Sox, is awesome because we love late inning runs. But like, how about we score in the first like couple of innings and just and they did. Let me be fair. They did because Jesse Winker hit the first inning, obviously grand slam. I believe it was in that Red Sox series. Like he hit the first inning grand slam. I get that, but I want to continue to see that type of production, putting pressure on the opposing team early and often. Because unless Sean Manaea goes out there and flops, because let's face it, like there are times where Sean Manaea this season, it's been very sparse, and he has done a great job in terms of mitigating bad starts. But there are some starts naturally, Sean Manaea and everybody else that's human pitching in the major leagues right now, they're going to have an off outing. So to compensate for any potential like that, I don't know if you guys can hear this. I'm just knocking on wood real quick. I don't want to jinx Sean Manaea, but just give him some breathing room. That's all I'm asking for. Give him some breathing room early and let him cook. My live chat poll is asking you all, if you're a part of this channel and in my chat right now, how many strikeouts is Sean Manaea going to have? Sean Manaea has been brilliant in terms of putting hitters away with the sweeper primarily or the up and in fastball, and I want to see more of that today. But the offense needs to continue to go out there and show them why they deserve the praise that we have been giving them. Because listen, the Mets offense this season has been one that has been streaky. They've been streaky, and they do post in general great numbers, and I do have belief in them. But we have seen at times where they have just gone AWOL and they've disappeared.
Yeah.
That is something that I'm not going to say I have in the back of my mind, but that's something that cannot happen at all in this part of the season. In September, going down the stretch of September. So score runs and continue to prove us right in terms of why we are up on here on camera with the microphone, giving you all praise. From number 1, like you said on your Mets Talk Live earlier today, from Francisco Lindor all the way to number 9 and Francisco Alvarez. It's a complete lineup, and it takes a complete effort, and go out there and give your starting pitcher some run support. That's my key. Nothing more, nothing less. Let's go, Mets. I appreciate it. Hit that thumbs up, and we will see you all in the post game. Make no mistake about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? My key to the game is don't underestimate the Cincinnati Reds. They're coming off a sweep of the Houston Astros. I know it's not the Houston Astros of the past few seasons, but the Astros have been playing extremely better, and the Reds just swept the Houston Astros. So they are a sneaky, dangerous team. Remember, this team not even a month ago was in a play, was right near the wild card. They were right there. right? The Mets and the Reds were like best friends for a while in this wild card race for a little bit of a time. You know, they fell off, but you know, they're a team. Don't underestimate. They can be a sneaky good team,
Right.
especially offensively. We got to be careful with that. They just swept the Astros. They're riding high right now, coming to New York. So be careful with that. You don't want to take them for granted, and then you know they put up a 5 spot in the first inning, and you're in trouble. Now you got to be chasing. You want to be in the lead. You want them to chase us. Early runs, like Chris said, but don't underestimate this Reds team. That's my key to today's game in this entire series as a whole. So, guys, 13 games over 500. You want to get there? Let's do it tonight. Let's start 8 wins in a row and talk about 13 games over 500. And you know what? Maybe the Braves will actually lose to the Toronto Blue Jays today, and we're in sole possession of the 3rd wild card when we talk about it on the post game, which we both will be in the post game talking hopefully about a New York Mets win and sole possession of that 3rd wild card with 21 games to go after tonight. So with that said, guys, thank you for tuning in to another Amazing Mets pregame show right here on both of our channels and on X. Before you go, guys, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Let's get Chris to 900 subs. If you haven't subscribed to his channel, what the hell are you doing? Get it done right now and hit that notification bell so anytime we post a video, go live, YouTube short, anything, you get notified that we're going to be right on your screen hanging out and talking Mets baseball with you. So with that said, enjoy the game tonight, guys. Let's go Mets, and we'll see you tonight for Mets post-game show right here on both of our channels. Have a great night, guys. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.